Okay, we're chock full of guests today. We'll keep it rolling. We're going to Mike Lux next. Mike wrote a piece about the Obama White House and Robert Gibbs' reaction to the so-called professional left. Thought he had a really couple of very interesting points in there, and we want to talk to him about it. Mike, welcome back, man. How are you?
Hey, great. Always great to be here.
Always great to have you. So, you're a lot softer on the Obama administration than I am. You're not soft on them, and you challenge them when you need it. I think that they, have not gotten nearly enough done. And you talked about in your piece the both sides of that coin. But you touched on something more interesting, which is the political ramifications of this. Is it a good idea, bad idea, and what other presidents have done? So let's start there. You worked in the Clinton White House. How is that different in terms of reaching out to progressives or liberals than the Obama White House has been so far?
Well, it was night and day. And that's the weird thing about all this. Having been in D.C. for a while, having seen how strong these corporate interests are here, how they dominate, so much of what goes on here. They dominate the media. They dominate, in Congress. They dominate the regulatory agencies. So I actually give Obama a fair amount of credit for trying to change things. I think he's made some dumb mistakes. I think, strategically he's been wrong. But what he's been just terrible at is the political side of things. I mean, here's a guy who, he screwed up some, but he did pass a health care bill. He made some compromises he shouldn't have on that. He made some compromises on the financial reform bill. But the guy's got some things done, but he hasn't done jack in terms of, the politics with the progressive community. In the Clinton administration, we actually didn't get as much done. We didn't do as many good things as I think Obama has done, but we worked hard at keeping in touch with people. We worked hard at the politics. We, every time we had to make a compromise that folks didn't like, we talked about it with them. We talked about what would make it better next time. Every major policy, we had people in well before it was decided to talk things through, talk the politics, talk the policy of it through. We worked it like crazy, and I think as a result, Clinton never had the trouble with the base or with progressives in terms of staying loyal to him that Obama's already had in his first year and a half, in spite of what he's got done.
Mike, that's really interesting to me. But, we also live in a different world. I mean, when you reached out to progressives in the Clinton administration, who was it? Was it just like, the interest groups like Planned Parenthood, National Organization of Women, et cetera? Or did you also reach out to The Nation or magazine writers? Who was it that you reached out to?
Well, it was a very different world. You are absolutely right about that. We didn't have, we didn't even have email when I first went to the White House in 1993. So we didn't have blogs. We didn't have Move On in those days. We didn't have, folks like yourself doing internet radio. We didn't have YouTube. We did have, the national organizations, progressive organizations. We did have The Nation and Mother Jones and all those kinds of sort of traditional media kind of media operations. We also reached out. We did a lot of reaching out to grassroots activists who we had identified through the campaign had sort of come through progressive politics. Folks in the key states that cared about progressive issues and since I had the same job in the White House that I did in the campaign, I had gotten to know a lot of those folks, at least in the target states. So we did a lot of outreach to them as well.
So Mike, let's connect that today. We're talking to Mike Lux. He's the author of The Progressive Revolution, worked in the Clinton administration, worked on Obama's transition team. Now, in today's world, we've got, bloggers, we got us, we got commentators, et cetera. And it seems to me that Rahm Emanuel and all the advisors of Obama are working in the old world model. So they go and they reach out to the national organizations that are already deeply entrenched, who don't want to risk their money, what some people call the veal pen. And I think they do a fairly good job of co-opting them. But except they don't recognize that we're 20 years later and it's a whole different world. So given that state, who should they reach out to?
Well, I think you make an absolutely on-target point, and it's the same point that I've been trying to make with these guys in internal conversations. They've done I would say an okay job, not a great job, an okay job of reaching out to, in some cases co-opting, in some cases genuinely listening to the big DC groups. Labor, for example. They've done a good job of working with them, listening to them on some things. Where I say they haven't done as well, by the way, is it's been a lot of top-down stuff. They have tried to intimidate those groups. They have tried to push on those groups to keep them from ever dissenting from them. So it hasn't been genuine. It hasn't been any kind of real strategy, but they have at least talked to them.
But Mike, if they did reach out to the bloggers, us, commentators, radio hosts, TV hosts, or whatever, I think part of the reason they don't is because they don't have a decent argument, and that's where you and I don't know if we agree or disagree on that. But if they were to come to us and say, no, we're not, serving the corporate interests, we can obviously prove them wrong. And then what are they going to say? I mean, that's why Gibbs says, they want to get rid of the Pentagon and silly things that nobody's talking about, because he has to build a straw man because he's actually wrong on the issue.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right on one level. Here's the only place I would really disagree with you. I think you and I agree on the substance, 80 or 90% of the time. Where I disagree is this. In my experience in the Clinton White House was that when I was successful at getting progressives to the table early, when I was successful at convincing the president, the vice president, key policymakers to actually listen to progressive folks on policy early, rather than after the policy had already been formed, Clinton actually, would sometimes, quite frequently, in fact, move at least some to the left.
Really?
In those years that I was in the White House, in the first couple of years, for the most progressive period in the Clinton administration. I'm not saying that was all because of me. Of course, it wasn't. But we were successful at getting people in front of Clinton, at having Clinton talk to people, and they sometimes moved him in the right direction. I have to think that the same thing would happen if they ever did any outreach to us in the Obama administration. It sure as hell wouldn't happen all the time, and we would still have to fight them on a lot of issues. I don't think it would. On Afghanistan, I still think he would suck. We'd have to keep fighting him on Afghanistan. But on some issues, I think we might make some kind of an impact if he was listening to more progressive folks.
Well, then let me go off that, because I think that's why I think this is such a great conversation, because I think we're stumbling onto what the real problem here is. Because maybe if we were in the room, we could convince Obama, and maybe that's exactly why we're not in the room. That's why Rahm Emanuel, Tim Geithner, Larry Summers don't want us in the room.
I think you're exactly right. I do not disagree one iota. Those guys do not want us in the room.
Well, then, you got to go back to Obama and say, look, this is not an excuse. I mean, you're creating a bubble here, and you're being led around by advisors. I think that's the biggest crime. If I was the president and I got a sense that my chief of staff or whoever it was that was organizing my schedule was purposely trying to play me and put me towards one direction that he was in favor of and shutting out other voices, to me that would be an immediate firing offense, because you're playing him for a fool. Do you see what I'm saying?
I completely agree with you. Yep.
So, and now, of course, Christina Romer's gone too from his economic team. I look around, who's the... you said corporate interests were, dominant and getting more and more dominant. I mean, I look at the Obama administration, God, it seems like the takeover is complete. Valerie Jarrett, Geithner, Summers, Emanuel. Who's left? Who's a progressive? Who's actually making an argument not just in favor of conservatives, progressives, but consumers and citizens and their voters?
Yeah, no, I think it's a huge problem, and when Van Jones started getting shit Can I say shit on your show?
Well, 50-50. But nonetheless, there it is.
When Van Jones started getting trouble from Glenn Beck, one of the reasons that Rahm made a calculated decision not to defend him very hard was because he didn't want him there. Maybe they would deny that. Maybe they wouldn't have. They wouldn't. But I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. They haven't fought hard for the people they didn't want there. Greg Craig, they pushed him out. The people who have been more on the progressive side, they've either pushed out, let get taken out, as with Van, or I think in some cases they've appointed decent people, but they haven't listened very much to them. And I do think there are still some decent people inside. I think Melody Barnes. I think the world of Melody Barnes, who's the domestic policy chief. I think the world of Cecilia Munoz, who's their intergovernmental person. They're good people and they're movement people, but I don't think they're being very well listened to.
Yeah, I've never heard a story where they're like, oh boy, Melody Barnes, and who we've had on the show and who I really like, boy, she really took control of that policy and Obama really listened to her. You're going as deep as intergovernmental affairs or et cetera, et cetera. I mean, Clinton, a lot of people are dissatisfied with that he wasn't liberal enough. I'm not. I'm a centrist, I think, and I think a lot of Clinton's actions were just right for me. But he at least had Robert Reich in the room. He at least had real progressives in the room.
No, I mean there were, and people like Harold Ickes, who was an old labor lawyer, and whose father was part of FDR's administration. I mean, John Podesta, who later founded CAP. There were some genuine progressive folks, and then there were some mid-level people like Michael Waldman, who went on to run the Brennan Center, and me, who's doing my lefty shtick now. There were several progressives who were both senior level and mid-level positions, and Clinton actually listened to us. He didn't go with us, I would say, even most of the time. I would say we lost a majority of the time on the arguments we made, but he did listen to us and he did go with us some of the time. And I don't think Obama has those kinds of people around him very much giving advice. And I also don't think he's bringing people in from the outside, which Clinton was very willing to do. If I said to him, you know what, Mr. President, your politics are getting screwed up because you're not listening to these people, then they never see you. He'd say, okay, bring them in. I'll hear them out. He gave a damn about that kind of stuff.
All right. Mike Lux, author of The Progressive Revolution. Great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely great to be on, and love being invited to come on.
Thank you, man. All right, we're going to come right back. We got another great guest for you guys, Young Turks.